Welcome to the Brad and Taylor Show. Today we have Ryan Deisenroth.
You're listening to the Brad and Taylor Show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to pursue their passions. We're sitting down with some of the best to learn how they got started and some lessons they learned along the way.
Hey Ryan, how's it going?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
We're good.
We're doing good. So what exactly do you do, Ryan?
So I'm a realtor with Social House Real Estate Group.
Nice. How long have you been in real estate?
I have been licensed, so I'm going on my 4th year here. I think July will make it 4 years.
That's awesome.
3
Good.
years.
That's
I don't
awesome.
know, time flies. I can't even keep track.
I know, right? You're like, what are we at? Where are we at? That's awesome. Yeah. So when you were younger, is this what you had planned when you grew up, or what was your whole plan?
I don't know. There's probably some people who are like, yeah, I'm really interested in a career in real estate as a young child or something. I think like most, little boys and little girls, or many little boys and little girls, you dream of playing professional sports. And so I played sports growing up, but I never got to like the collegiate level or anything like that. Really liked soccer. I'm only 5'6" though, so my stature wasn't really conducive to being a professional athlete. So it kind of was left to a more traditional career path, I guess. I never really envisioned real estate.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what other things have you done?
Yeah, so I graduated from Michigan State. I don't know how long ago that was, over a decade ago. And I had a couple, I had like 2, 3, 4, 5 different jobs, cycling through jobs right when I graduated. Finally found a company that I worked for a long period of time where I felt like I had a good career. I kind of started climbing the corporate ladder, and I still, even at that point in time, wasn't totally sure what I wanted to do with my life, but it was a good landing spot. They ended up paying for my MBA. I did a bunch of different things, and it was a large property and casualty insurance company. So I worked in claims and operations and finance. They paid for my MBA, and I thought, I was kind of progressing through the ranks and held different leadership positions, and felt like I would leverage that to take my career in a different direction. And I didn't even know what direction that was. But my wife, so coincidentally enough, my wife was working with with Eric Wright, who started the brokerage I'm at, Social House Group. She did some freelance marketing work for him. And so backtrack 4 years ago or so, right when I got into real estate, I don't know why it dawned on me, but I saw she was putting together some promotional materials for him. Like, that seems kind of interesting. I always had kind of an affinity for homes. I'm like probably the general population where your neighbor that you've never been in their house, they have a for sale or an open house sign, and you kind of just pop in to be a creep because you like seeing the insides of houses. Everyone likes seeing houses. So I think, in that regard, real estate interested me, but I never saw a career in that. And so after Eric and I talked, I felt like there was a lot of overlap in some of the skills that I'd acquired in corporate America. And I'd always worked in service industries, so it just seemed like it might be a good fit. And the rest is history. I've been doing it for the last 3 to 4 years.
Nice. So take us to that first transaction you had. How did that go?
Eric held my hand through a lot of it, actually. So it was, I had some guidance there. I think like a lot of young realtors, you go into it, and it was actually, my first client was a buy sell. So that was great. And, Eric kind of helped me through the process, but it was rocky. It wasn't, it's never as simple as you envision it would be. And even to this day, I have more experience, but there's always something new happening with each transaction.
Right. Yeah. I think that's pretty common too. You go into it thinking, okay, I got this. And then you get there and there's a lot of paperwork. So you got to go through it.
It's one thing to go through the coursework. You're like, oh, I'm good. I'm going to be a realtor now. And then all of a sudden you get your first deal. It's like, okay, what do I do?
Right. Yep. I think that's a lot more common than people actually think. Nice. So let's switch it a little bit. What is the worst property that you have been to?
Worst property. So the address, no, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah.
The worst property I've been to, I have a investor client that I work with who flips homes, and investment properties are typically sold as is, and usually they aren't move-in ready per se. We went to one home that I remember in particular where, this was during COVID, so we're wearing our masks, but when you walked in the house, you knew that there was lots of animals that lived there. The animals weren't there, but
But you can tell.
You couldn't see them.
It was pungent. And so like through the math and everything, and holes in the walls, it felt like the house was going to cave in on us. And funny enough, though, actually, so we put an offer in on that property, and we didn't actually win it, but the worst property that I've ever been to was one that I put an offer in on. That's kind of convoluted. But,
but it had potential, or else you wouldn't have done that.
It did, lots of potential.
After you get all that carpet cleaned or the floors ripped out or whatever you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started out in the business, is there any advice you kind of got at the beginning that kind of helped you along the way?
Yeah, I think the most impactful advice that I've ever gotten was to try to remove the emotion out of the transaction. So, and I found when I kind of first got started that in some ways, I kind of like carry the emotion of my clients into the deal. Yeah. And I learned that was very problematic in a number of scenarios, And so, of course, like I'm there to be, my clients' advocates, and I'm their biggest cheerleader, and I'm there to do what's right by them. But sometimes whether we were negotiating after the inspection or negotiating the terms of the purchase contract, like I was probably a little bit overly emotional because I was so gung ho to do what was right by my clients. And it got me in a few situations that like helped me learn. And so now I kind of know like, hey, my role is to certainly like do right by my clients, but they're going through one of the most emotional times of their life, probably the biggest transaction they've ever been involved in. So I need to be kind of like that calming presence and the one who can come in objectively and really make sure that like the transaction goes off smoothly and be a barrier for that, because I've passed some information along from clients about how they were feeling to other realtors early on. It's like, it creates some weird contentious relationship, or there's so many things that could go wrong. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I ever got pretty early on was, hey, like, let's try to remove the emotion out of it and be more of a guide throughout the process.
Right.
And, you wear a lot of hats as a realtor, and of course you're an agent, but you're kind of like a therapist at times, you're like a sounding board, and so like I need to absorb all of that and then go through the transaction objectively.
Do you have any advice on how you could leave out that emotion and you just be the middle guy at that point? Because I know this is a pretty emotional decision for a lot of buyers and sellers. So how do you go about that? How would you leave that out?
Yeah.
Because you want to be really personal without being.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I don't know. I mean, I think that after going through a few experiences where I realized that my emotions kind of got in the way of achieving the result that we wanted or complicated things a bit, mm-hmm. That's when I was able to really take a step back. And I think, like with anything, practice makes perfect. So it's something I try to remain cognizant of every time that I'm going through a challenging conversation or I'm dealing with a difficult negotiation. But I think awareness is really the first step. And then, just kind of like keeping that at the forefront of your mind and recognizing what your role is and the implications of passing that emotion from your clients onto the other side and what that can do.
Yeah, for sure. If you could start all over again with $1,000, how would you spend that first $1,000? Is there anything that you would do differently?
Funny enough, I think I'd probably spend it the exact same way that I did. I don't know if you guys know much about our brokerage Social House, but our whole model is predicated on leveraging social media and tools to help sell our clients' homes faster and quicker, and use that as like a lead gen source, all sorts of things. And so like social media is our bread and butter. And the first $1,000 and many thousands of dollars after that I sunk into the business was leveraging social media essentially. And that's what's really helped my business thrive and flourish. So I would do that again for sure. What I might do differently, maybe not as it pertains to like how I would spend that money, but I feel like you can never have enough knowledge. And so I kind of like, went through the licensing course and I just dove right in, and I don't know how you do it. Like certainly a lot of this is experiential and like you go through everything and you learn from your mistakes and from your successes. But I think maybe if I might like take more coursework that was, centered around the actual like transactions, because the pre-licensure coursework is not that. It's a lot of law and regulation and just kind of like big picture things, but in practicality, a lot of it, you don't come across in your day-to-day transactions.
Right.
So maybe gaining a little bit better knowledge base on the front end, but through trial and error, I think I figured a lot of it out over here.
Yeah. For when you guys said you do a lot of social media stuff, what kind of platforms do you guys use at the moment?
Yeah, so Facebook is our bread and butter, really. My bread and butter. A little bit on Instagram, and then I've kind of flirted with the idea of trying to do something maybe with Snapchat, but really it's Facebook, and then to a lesser extent Instagram.
Gotcha. Have you done any TikTok yet?
No, and that's actually something I need to do. No, and I should back up too, because a lot of the folks in my brokerage are doing these really cool creative short videos on TikTok. I see it all over the place. I'm a late adopter, I guess. So and that's something that's really gaining some momentum. So I probably thank you for pushing me to do that. This is what I need.
Yep, there we go. You guys heard it here first. So when's that first video coming out?
Yeah, right now you're going to hold me accountable. I don't know. Let's say we'll shoot for the first week of June.
There we go. We go.
So by the time this is posted, everyone will be able to see that.
Let's go see that video.
You guys are really making me see this. So yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. I'm excited.
Nice. So what kind of goals do you have going forward in the next year that you want to achieve?
So I'd say I'll give two goals, I guess. One's from a personal sales volume. I'd like to hit $10 million in personal volume as kind of a less, less tangible, but as a different type of goal. I'd like to get into the investment side of things. So I'd really like to have within the next year my first rental property or two, and kind of explore that side of things.
That's awesome. I like it. Is there any business books that you've read that you could recommend to anyone kind of starting out in the business?
Yeah. I would say so.
I see that big stack behind you. I just wonder what it was.
I would be lying. There's more around the house too. I'd be lying if I said I read all of them, but I've read a fair amount. It's funny enough, that's one of my goals this year, is to read more, which I'm not doing too well with. So I need to kind of recenter there. But so the most recent book I read, coincidentally, my brother-in-law is a New York Times bestselling author. Mm-hmm. And he just came out with a book a few weeks ago called Big Little Breakthroughs. And it's about how, everyday little innovations actually breed, creative results. And it's not like you just swing your wand and all of a sudden, magic happens. So that was the most recent book I read. I'd recommend that if you're looking at, trying to become more creative or innovating, and kind of breaking down that notion of it all happens, you're born with it, or it's magic, Another one I would say is really good is To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. I think that's actually back there. It just kind of talks about the art and science of sales. And of course I'm in sales, but it's applicable to anyone, even not in the industry. And it talks about your everyday life too. And then I guess one other would be The One Thing by Gary Keller. And that is something that I kind of go back to all the time, because I'm a little bit scattered, and I find that there's so many distractions, right? My emails going off, texts blowing up, and of course you try and balance the responsiveness aspect, because that's great client satisfaction, but also knowing that that's not what's driving some of your business forward, right? So I'm so quick to clear up my email. Do I have to clear this email out? So thinking about the one thing that you can do to drive your business forward. And for me, that's prospecting and lead generation, following up on leads. If I don't have clients, I don't have, a role. So it helps me whenever I'm kind of getting distracted. That helps me get centered and always boil it down to what is the one most simple thing I can do to drive favorable outcomes. So that's not one, that's 3 books, but for whatever.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Awesome. Was there anything else you want to share with everyone before we go?
No, I think that's it. I appreciate you guys having me. Had a good time. And thanks so much.
Sweet. Well, hey, thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us today.
Thanks. Have a good one, guys.
Yep.
Are these working?
All right.
Here we go.
Oh, there we go. I think they're working. Should we tell them?
Mine keeps falling. It doesn't like my voice.
What do we got to tell them?
Subscribe.
Subscribe? What do we got to point at it? Hey, I think there's a subscription button. Like
It might be there.
might be right there too.
Somewhere.
Find
it. It's red.
Yeah, and it's
Red.
blue. It's green. I don't really know.
It's a color.
This mic isn't even attached. Did you plug these in? Well, I guess.
I wonder if they can hear us.
Yeah. I wonder if they hear us. Well, we should probably tell them if they can hear us. We should probably tell them also give us a 5-star review if they're listening on Apple. That'd be cool.
5 stars,
review.
guys.
Share it with everybody they can think of.
We won't take
But-
4 stars.
I mean, Taylor, I don't even think these are on. I mean,
No, I don't think this is working.
This is not working.